Today we're going to be making a planter to put on your wall. So it has a flat back and it has a little pouch. And the little pouch can be pressed with grasses and natural things from the garden, or it can be carved once it's leather hard with a little implement. So there are lots of ways of decorating it and treating it. You can make it quite rough and make it look like just a little pocket. So you must play around, look online, and you'll find various ways to make a planter. If you want it to be just as a wall vase, you don't put holes in the bottom. But if you want to have good drainage, then you'll need holes there. I sometimes like to put 2 holes up at the top so I can put a wire and then I can get it straight. Otherwise with 1 hole, if it's a little bit off center, it doesn't hang straight. So here's a little example of one that was raku fired and left very rough and ready with an air plant inside. And this one's very happy outside in the garden. So I hope you enjoy making your planter, and I'll see what you make on the other side. Please let me know. Plan your wall planter so that you have a front and a back, and the front will be slightly bigger than the back. I'm using an A4, fold it nearly in half and then half again to get a symmetry, and then cut it out for the back. And then for the front I've used 3/4 or more than 3/4 of an A4. The front pouch must be a little bit longer than the back pouch because it curves around the sides and top to bottom. You will also see that I have left the back with a little bit sticking up so that the hanging device can be easily accessed when you want to hang your planter on the wall. Wedge your clay well and then make it into a ball and flatten it out and throw it like a pizza, with the far side reaching the table first and then flipping it towards you and keeping it turned around. But before you start throwing it, just divide your clay into 2 pieces, one slightly bigger than the other, so that you've got your front and your back ready. I'm not using any guides for this slab for the planter because I want it a little bit thicker than my guides are, about 8 millimeters or so that you've got extra clay for pressing some texture into it. So it's quite rough and ready, this little planter. You don't need to have a perfect slab. But if you find any air bubbles, you need to prick them with something sharp and work them in, and smooth and compress both surfaces with your credit card. Once your back is ready, you can place it on a board so that it's easy to move around and handle. Then if you are going to texture your planter with natural objects from the garden, you can press them in at this stage, or lace or anything with texture. You can press it in now while it's still wet. If you want to just simply carve your planter, you wait until it's leather hard before you scratch into it. I found that I had pressed too hard and too deep with my lavender, so I'm filling it back in and then going to repress it. Because if you cut too deeply with your pressing, your slab might slit at that point and you might cause a crack. Scratch and slip both the surfaces that are going to be joined for your planter. In my studio I use vermiculite inside old stockings to support wet slabs, but if you don't have vermiculite you could put rice in an old sock or sand, but you can also use paper scrunched up. The reason one doesn't use something hard to press the pouch over is that the clay needs to shrink, so you need something that will shrink with the clay as it dries to leather hard. If you are using newspaper, scrunch it up very well so that it's nice and soft. I found that I didn't scrunch mine enough, so it left a few marks on the surface of the interior of my pocket, and I had to smooth those in right at the end when it was leather hard. Make sure the two parts of your pouch make a good bond. Press it firmly together and smooth the edges and just work it a little bit until you're happy. I like to reinforce the top edges of the seam with an extra little bit of decorative clay, as well as to reinforce the area where I'm going to put the hole for the wire to hang the planter on the flat back of the planter. Here I'm putting little decorative studs all the way around my planter. Not entirely necessary, but it's quite fun to do with an old pen. Then you need to leave your planter for a few hours till it's leather hard. Then you can carefully ease your newspaper out of the pocket or your vermiculite. Here I've got a little bit of paper that was caught in the seam, so I had to dig the paper out and then patch that area. Just be careful when you do that join that you don't get paper caught in there. Then you can put slip all the way around the inside of the seam so that the coil that you're going to join to reinforce will stick nicely into the corners there. Roll a nice long coil on a damp work surface with a very slow, firm rolling action until it's as thick as your finger. Press the coil in from one side to the other so that you don't trap air in behind the coil, and press it in very firmly and smooth it so that you can't see it anymore. Blend it in completely. Now I'm making my little reinforcement for the back of the planter that's in the shape of a heart, and I must scratch and slip both surfaces really well and blend it in so that you don't see the join anymore. Make your holes with a hole cutter of the right size, or else you can use a drill bit to get a nice round hole. One hole is usually enough for drainage, but I believe in very good drainage, so I normally put more than one hole in.